my stomach. I'm so bloated. Oh, oh, so stressed. Oh, my hair, it's falling out. Oh. Hey sisters, do you know what your PCOS type is? Today I'm going to talk to you about the different types of PCOS and help you discover what your type might be so you can take the next step in your PCOS journey. I'll also give you treatment options for each one. Don't worry, they're all natural. Stay tuned until the end when I'll share my top tips for each type of PCOS. When I was diagnosed with PCOS, I distinctly remember not getting a clear answer to the question, what is the cause of my PCOS? Comment below if you felt the same way. As it turns out, each woman with PCOS has a unique set of imbalances and root causes that need to be addressed. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. That's why it gets a little complicated when we're initially diagnosed with PCOS. But you found me, and we're gonna break this down together so you understand the root cause of your PCOS. Like I said, you can have multiple PCOS types. For example, I had 3 out of the 4. The tips that I share with you are part of my current daily routine. Some types of PCOS will manifest more mildly for you, and some will show up more extremely. Breaking down the PCOS types is a way to help you understand what you should work on first with managing PCOS. If one of the PCOS types is waving a red flag, then that's the one you should focus on. It can get really overwhelming to manage PCOS, so this is how I like to approach it, one step at a time. We do have a free helpful tool to get you started, a short interactive quiz to help you find what your PCOS type might be. Of course, this isn't a diagnosis, but it can certainly be a step in getting started on your journey. I've linked it in the description so you can get started. All right, let's get into it. The first main type of PCOS is inflammation. All women with PCOS, we struggle with inflammation. It's a central factor of PCOS, not just a side effect. I certainly knew I had a lot of inflammation because of my cystic acne and bloating and weight plateau. Some other symptoms include fatigue, irritable bowel syndrome, allergies, joint pain, anxiety, and irritability. So what is inflammation? Inflammation occurs when your immune system is chronically activated. Inflammatory cytokines are signals that are secreted constantly at a low level in women who have PCOS. Here are some of the ways that those signals affect your body. They directly act on the ovary to cause the overproduction of testosterone. They also directly act on our fat cells to trigger insulin resistance. I'm gonna explain insulin resistance further because it is the second most common PCOS type. But I'd like to point out that inflammation can lead to insulin resistance. One PCOS type can lead to another if it goes unmanaged. It's important to focus on healing chronic inflammation, not only because it leads to insulin resistance, but also because it can drive PCOS symptoms like facial hair, acne, anxiety, and weight gain. I'll be talking more about managing this PCOS type in just a minute. The second type of PCOS is insulin resistance. 80% of women with PCOS struggle with this and suffer from symptoms like uncontrollable cravings. Comment below if you know the feeling. We're always blamed for it, but it's not our fault. The cravings are because of insulin resistance, not a lack of self-control. Other symptoms include poor blood sugar control, which is when it goes up after a meal and then comes crashing down, making you feel like you have to snack all the time. So what is insulin resistance? Sirak's gonna mime this for you. Insulin is a hormone secreted after you eat so that it can pick up the sugar that's broken down from what you ate and put it in your cells for energy. Consider insulin like a key to your cell. When your cells are resistant to insulin, it's not able to accept the sugar in your bloodstream to burn it for energy. As a result, the sugar will store as fat, and the insulin will trigger high testosterone in the ovaries, leading to symptoms like irregular periods and ovarian cysts. Like I said earlier, inflammation can lead to insulin resistance. That's why just cutting out your carbs isn't an effective way of managing it. you have to treat the inflammation as well. So stay tuned when I'll give you my top tips to manage insulin resistance. The third most common type of PCOS is adrenal fatigue, and it often goes unnoticed and untreated. This is when you feel super exhausted and stressed, like you got 8 hours of sleep, but it's still not enough. In the medical world, the term stress means anything that exceeds the adaptive capability of your body and raises your level of cortisol, the stress hormone. This means you could be lying on a beach, like I was in Nice, France, sipping on a glass of Chardonnay, yet still have high levels of cortisol. In that video I took 10 years ago, I was in the south of France. My adrenal fatigue was actually at its worst, at the most beautiful view in front of me, and my body was screaming with anxiety and stress because of my hormonal imbalance. Back then, and especially before that vacation, I was working out every single day, running 5 miles, or even going to back-to-back kickboxing classes. The adrenaline rush from the workout made me feel good at first, but then the crash was unreal the next day or even the next hour. My body couldn't handle it. Comment below if this has been your experience too. Perhaps after a cycling class or CrossFit. I was definitely one of the women struggling with this, and my period disappeared and weight just kept going up no matter how hard I worked out. Think of it this way. The intense workout is raising your cortisol, and your body isn't able to bring the cortisol back down. As a result, chronic high levels of cortisol and DHEAS, another stress hormone, convert to testosterone, leading to PCOS symptoms. It can also lead to blood sugar dysregulation, which leads to a combination of adrenal fatigue and insulin resistance. The combination of chronic high cortisol and high insulin is a recipe for weight gain, especially in the midsection. And to add to that, when our body overproduces cortisol, we're not prioritizing other hormones necessary for ovulation and menstruation. That's why my period went missing. So in total, the stress can trigger many of our PCOS symptoms, like anxiety, weight gain, and period irregularity. If this is you, stay tuned till the end for my tips. The fourth root cause of PCOS is hypothyroidism. This is when your thyroid gland produces too little thyroid hormones. These are responsible for metabolism and can also influence your sex hormones. Symptoms like irregular ovulation, hair loss, insulin resistance, and overall slow metabolism and weight gain are magnified by thyroid conditions. The best way to find out if you're struggling with this is by having a complete thyroid panel and comparing your results to the functional ranges used in integrative medicine. One of the factors that can contribute to a weakened thyroid is uncontrolled blood sugar. That's why it's important to treat your PCOS type. If you have insulin resistance and don't manage it, this type of PCOS could potentially lead to another, like hypothyroidism. So now that we've covered each PCOS type, let's discuss how you can manage each one naturally. So what can we do about inflammation? How do we reduce this? Well, you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again. Try cutting out gluten and dairy for at least 30 days to see how you feel and if your symptoms get any better. Here's what happens when we eat gluten. Sirek will mime as I explain this to you. So studies show that every time we eat gluten, a protein called zonulin is released in our stomach. Our gut lining should have tight junctions, but zonulin causes the gut lining to loosen up, creating something called intestinal permeability. The protein in gluten is able to then get through and into your bloodstream. That triggers chronic inflammation in the body and starts a cascade of effects on our hormones. Everyone's body is different. One person might react more strongly than another person, but it's worth a try to find if this is something affecting your body. If your symptoms like acne, bloating, weight plateau improve when you stop eating gluten and dairy, then you know you're on the right track. So what can we do about insulin resistance? You may have been given metformin and told to just cut out all your carbs if you were diagnosed with insulin resistance. This isn't completely necessary. You can have carbs even if you're insulin resistant. You have to find a way to manage it that will work for you long term. Some of the ways I like to manage my insulin is by keeping my daily sugar intake really low, going gluten and dairy free, and doing slow weighted workouts. If you want to watch what I mean by slow weighted workouts, check out my video on the best exercises for PCOS. A game changer for my insulin was going dairy free. Dairy contains insulin-like growth factor, which spikes our insulin levels, contributing to insulin resistance. It also contains casein, which can be very inflammatory. The combination of inflammation and insulin resistance was a recipe for my PCOS symptoms. Cutting dairy out for at least 30 days helped me understand how this was affecting my body. My skin cleared, my hunger and fullness cues were on point, and I just felt much better and more in control of myself. I also supplement my lifestyle with Ovasitol to help with insulin resistance. I've linked it in the description for you. So what about adrenal fatigue? How can we manage our symptoms? I'm giving you permission to stop and take a break, even if you were told to try harder to lose weight. Stop cutting calories, stop working out harder, stop doing the things that are stressing your body out. Keto, intermittent fasting. How do you feel? Miserable? Stop! Your metabolism will thank you. Studies show that cutting calories and going on a low-carb diet significantly increase cortisol levels. A low-carb diet could be helpful if you have insulin resistance. But if you have a combination of insulin resistance and adrenal fatigue, it could be making your hormonal imbalance much, much worse. Instead of cutting out carbs completely, find your carbohydrate tolerance so that you feel nourished and heal your hormones. This is something that we show you how to do in stage 4 of our membership site, The Sisterhood, where you can learn to find your carb tolerance using our tools such as the 7-day carb tracker. I've linked it below for you to check it out. One way that I like to keep my cortisol low and get a good night's rest is by taking CBD. A couple of hours before I go to sleep, Sirak drops this into my mouth and I get relaxed and ready for bed. I've added the link to the description if you're ready to make this lifestyle change. So what about hypothyroidism? How can we manage that? Well, depending on the severity, you may or may not need medication. It's best to speak with your doctor about this. However, going gluten-free could help. Once again, Sirak's gonna mime this for you. Studies show that gluten contains a protein called gliadin that your body can easily mistake for a thyroid molecule in a process known as molecular mimicry. If the tight junctions of your gut are irritated, like I mentioned earlier, because of the sensitivity to gluten or even stress, the gliadin protein is able to enter right into your bloodstream. Then, your immune system mistakenly identifies gliadin as an intruder and attacks it by producing antibodies. Once these antibodies are formed, they can also attack your thyroid gland. So your body's response every time you eat gluten is to make antibodies to gliadin, which then attack your thyroid. So it's good to know if you struggle with hypothyroidism. All right, sisters. These are the PCOS types broken down for you. It's really important to understand that you may have a combination of these PCOS types. Like I mentioned earlier, I had 3 out of 4 types. They were inflammation, insulin resistance, and adrenal fatigue. I was able to reverse all of these symptoms by following the tips I've shared with you, and I hope they're just as helpful for you. Let me know in the comments which type of PCOS you might have, and don't forget to take the quiz in the description to get a head start in your PCOS journey. Until next time, take care.